Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Pitlane Podcast, and we have another brilliant episode lined up for you this week. It's really hard to believe that this is our 4th episode since recording. We're at it almost a month, I suppose, and time really does fly when you're having fun, Jason, not right? Although you wouldn't have said that 10 minutes ago when we were having some technical issues.
There was blue there for a while, Aaron, but we're good to go now, and as you say, the last 3 weeks have really flown in, and we're having a bit of fun doing it, and hopefully the listeners enjoying it, as I'm sure they are. But it's always nice to hear from them, as we have been. So please do keep sending in your messages and your feedback through the usual social media channels.
Well, this week I'm delighted to say that bikes are back to the fore, and we have a really special guest ready to make their Pitlane Podcast debut just a little bit later on. On this week's show, we are joined by Northwest 200's record wins holder Alastair Seeley. The Carrickfergus man will be talking to us about his love for Ireland's largest outdoor sporting event, a successful career in BSB, and gives us an insight into his plans for the year ahead as he's set to return to racing the short circuits right here in Northern Ireland. And then a bit later on, Jason and I will be given a lowdown of the world of 2 and 4 wheels from the weekend. So yes, there's a lot to look forward to, and we hope that you stay tuned. So, without further ado, there's no time like the present to introduce this week's special guest, Carrickfergus' very own wee wizard, Alastair Seeley. He's enjoyed a BSB career which spanned over a decade. He's won championships in the Superstock and Supersport class, and in that time, he has many race wins to go alongside it. Seeley is the most successful rider ever at the Northwest 200 with an impressive 24 race wins around the triangle, and he was also a double Irish Superbike and Supersport title earlier on in his career. So, Alastair Seeley, a massive welcome to you to Pitlane Podcast, and I suppose the best way for us to maybe start this off is by asking you just how you're keeping in that glorious sunshine.
Yeah, well, obviously today and yesterday weather was class, so been out mountain biking, and yeah, obviously yesterday I had a track day at Bishopscourt with the IFS team. They brought the Superbike down, and the 600 was there as well, so spun some laps. Obviously didn't have to worry about any tire changes or wheels coming in and out. It was just slicks on all day, get the warmers on, and it was all about just getting plenty of laps, because I haven't done very much since Brands Hatch October last year with the last round of British Supersport. So just got back up to speed, got dialed in with the track, and enjoyed the weather. Called in for a wee ice cream after the whole thing was over.
Sounds very enjoyable, but for you this year, I suppose you're back to home comforts and back to your old stomping ground. And is that something that excites you, to be back at home racing in front of, the home fans, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think with the British Championship thing, I think the ship has sailed with that. I've had a good time over there. 2007 was my first year there, and I done 13 14 years I got out of it, and 2 British Championships, I think 3-time runner up, so in the classes throughout those years. So I didn't have a bad career over there, and I say the ship has sailed. I would still like to maybe get a wild card if possible. There hasn't been much talk of it, but it would be a sort of dream scenario where I'm riding the IFS Global Logistics 600 at home, and if things are going well, then maybe towards the end of the year I get a wild card thrown in for a British Supersport round on the bike, and we could go out and kind of prove with a good bike where we could be and what we could do, and certainly throw a cat amongst the pigeons. And then who knows what that could lead to. It's always, in this sport, they always say you're only as good as your last race, and if you go back out there and open a few eyes again, then you don't know where it could lead to. So yeah, that's the plan, is to race at home, try and have a good year, put on a good show for the team who are obviously giving me the chance, and as you say, the spectators, hopefully get them all back in through the gates, and put on a show for everybody that kind of has been watching me on TV on Eurosport for all these years and try and see it in real life when they're watching trackside.
And had you offers, Alastair, to continue in Supersport or the GP2 classes you've been in your career as well?
No, not for this year. I spoke to the Supersport teams, the more established teams, because I feel like if you're not in them established teams, then it's kind of, you're not going to be given the package to prove yourself in the class, and it's quite hard to win races unless you have a proven package. So spoke to the few teams that would be able to give me the package available, but they were kind of saying that my CV was too good, or one team manager said my CV was too good and he didn't want me kind of going out there and disappearing up the road and making it a one-man show, and the other teams were more asking for money, and the money was quite extortionate. And I thought, at this stage of my career, I don't feel I should have to bring that kind of money to a team, and I thought my CV could kind of speak for itself to get me a ride. But the young lads with the money seem to be the ones now who are stepping into these shoes or into these boots and getting the rides. And fair play. The team bosses, I suppose, see youth and youth. They're trying to bring youth through and nurture them and give them a chance on a good package to prove what they can do. So it's one of them. If I'm given the opportunity, I feel with the IFS bike, maybe later on in the year, then that'll be a chance for me to say, maybe you should have thought the other way and took somebody like myself.
Yeah, and it's exactly as you say. It could be an opportunity for you to maybe put your name back in people's tongues for next year. Or would you say that this, your time is over in BSB, or would that be harsh?
No, if we get a good result, it'll all be dependent if we can get over, and it's one of them where them guys will be racing week in, week out every time BSB, and then you'll be coming in. So it's all about if I can have some good time at home here and have some good races. I think some of these races this year that we're going to have at home, they're actually going to up the amount of laps that we're going to get. So it'll be more like BSB distance that we're going to have. I think some of the what would you call them, the memorial races that we're going to have, the big races, are going to be like 15 laps, and I don't think anybody's done a 15 lapper for a long time around the likes of Bishopscourt or Kirkison. So that'll be good. It'll probably work in my favor a bit more, being used to longer race distances, and obviously the training then pays off more so in them races towards the end of it.
Yeah, and just looking back, you've had some really tremendous battles over the years, as we sort of touched on before we started this, with seasoned pros like Steve Brogan and in more recent times Jack Kennedy, and they got heated at times as well. But I suppose when you look at it, that's racing and these things happen.
Yeah, the Jack Kennedy thing, when you look at YouTube and see how many hits it had, I wish I had a pound for every hit that it had. I wouldn't have to go back to motorbike racing. So it's just one of them, it was heat of the moment, adrenaline was flowing. These things happen, it's close to the line, and it's well forgot about now. It's all water under the bridge. Jack's still doing the BSB and Supersport this year again on a Kawasaki. So, it'd be nice if we can get back maybe later in the year and try and reignite that and get the old legs going, the arms going, elbows out.
And your old sparring partner, Steve Brogan, I watched Chasing the Racing a couple of weeks ago, and he was on just reflecting his career. I suppose you had some good battles with him as well, and Superstock 1000, I think it would have been at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, whenever I joined BSB, it was 2007, and I was with the team Vanfit Yamaha, and they gave me an R1 to do Superstock 1000. So the first year was kind of learning the tracks, and it was like a bit of an eye opener, going from being Irish Superbike champion to BSB. And I thought this will be not too bad. But the first race I went to was Brands Hatch GP track, which was the big track out the, you do the Dingledale and all the Hawthorne and all them corners out the back. So it ended up my first round at Brands Hatch GP. I didn't even qualify. I think it was like 43rd or 44th out of 40 places on the grid you were allowed. So that was a bit of an eye-opener of not qualifying for my first race. But the one person who kind of remember coming over to me was Billy Nutt. And he said, look, you don't become a bad rider overnight. Just keep your head down, keep chipping away, and it'll come. So right enough, second round, qualified. And then throughout that year, just kept improving and improving, learning the tracks. And then went back in 2008 and sort of run my own outfit, but kept my crew chief from the first year and kept the Yamaha R1. So we had a bit of similarity and continuity and knew the bike then was going at the tracks with the same sort of bike. And that's whenever I finished fourth in the championship with a few podiums. So it was kind of, then I thought, well, 3-year plan, learn the tracks, get podiums, knock on the door of winning, and then on the third year, try and go for the championship. And that's what happened. We started the season off with JMF, Millsport Yamaha, and then moved along to Relentless Suzuki and ended up rattling off 9 wins on the bounce against Steve Brogan and brought the title home at Cadwell Park. So yeah, it was a nice 3-year plan that worked out lovely, and obviously nice to do it with TAS Racing, who have been in my career a lot of years.
Yeah, and just getting on to probably the next part of your career and maybe the baby, so to speak, the Northwest 200. You don't need anything by way of an explanation by what you've achieved there. And I suppose given the weather at the moment, the Northwest would be past us now at this point in the year, but it would be glorious if it was on the last couple of days.
Yeah, well, hopefully next year. I think the Northwest week this year, if it had went ahead, it wasn't that great. I think it was cold, if I can remember. So, we're only a couple of weeks further down the line and we're getting the weather like we're getting at the minute, 18, 19 degrees. So yeah, it's one of them where hopefully next year it'll be awesome weather, and hopefully I can kind of keep the teams involved that I was hopefully going to ride for this year, and hopefully we could continue in the 2022 Northwest 200 and try and have some more success and get onto the podium, climb up onto the podium again and see if we can add to our 24 wins.
And I suppose from a rider's point of view as well, it's that stable mate sort of event in May that everybody misses. It's basically like the BSB of the North Coast, and it must be a fantastic spectacle to be involved in.
Yeah, it's one of them ones I look forward to every year. It's a week-long event, and we get all the sort of perks of the job where I get a BMW car for the week, and that's not really through the team. That's just through a mutual friend who is a sales director for BMW. So it started off, with the Tyco BMW thing, and then sort of continued with the friendship, and then it's not very often you get handed the keys to a brand new M3 or M4 BMW and go ripping around the North Coast on it, looking the part with the shades on and stuff. So you get the perks of the job, and then obviously, I take it very seriously. Like, I've always done my homework. I always state I do my homework before I get there, because it helps just get up to speed before you get out on the track. And obviously with the speeds involved at that place, you want to try and get your brain up to speed as quick as you can and do all the homework before you get onto the track. And I think that kind of tells where I would say the majority of Tuesday practice sessions over the years, we have always been, if not pole, on the front row on Tuesday. And that kind of, I put paid down to doing all the homework and just enjoying the place and being there for a number of years now, and kind of working out where to be on the track and how to push and when to push, and just all the sort of trade secrets. But I think a lot of the guys are clicking onto these secrets after I released my DVD that time, and everybody has a wee watch at it because I explained how I got to 17 wins. So that obviously would be a nice wee stepping stone for people who come to the Northwest.
And just in terms of that homework, and I know you touched on it there, that you gave some of your trade secrets away, but without giving too many more away, what sort of things does a rider look for or prepare themselves for when approaching the Northwest?
I think the one thing that does Standout is probably with the body. You know, the neck gets a terrible buffeting around with high speed, and kind of you're fighting against the helmet, the turbulence and stuff. So it's the only time you really have to work your neck muscles really hard before you go to an event. And in the gym, you're doing the rubber band stretches or tying weights on and kind of doing those exercises because the neck gets a terrible workout with those high speeds. That's the only thing that really stands out differently for the Northwest. Apart from that, just watching onboards and sometimes getting frustrated with the small mistakes I've made over the years where it could be a lot more than 24 at the minute, but ifs and buts and all that, you know, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I'll not complain about 24. You know, it's been good to me, the event. I enjoy going up there with the whole family, and then obviously my missus's family comes over and we all have a nice barbecue and friends and stuff set up in the paddock. I always base myself in the paddock the whole week anyway, in the living area, so I'm never too far away from the main paddock and meeting fans in the team awnings and going to the ice cream, the poke van, shall we say, in the paddock and getting an ice cream for the family and stuff, and the wee one. She's always keeps me on my toes. So she does.
And you say there about, you know, you've 24 wins at the moment. It could have been more, but it has to be a special feeling knowing that you're the most successful rider ever at the event when you take into consideration, you know, some of the great riders that are now below you in that chart.
Yeah, for sure. You know, obviously Robert Dunlop had the record of 15, and I think it was 2016 where we actually done the record or took the record. So, you know, to take over the mantle of somebody with such a prolific surname, and obviously Joey, I think, had a lot of superbike wins there as well. He just didn't have as many race wins, but I think he had a lot of superbike wins. So to do that was obviously very special, and rewrite the record books and put my name up there. And you know, I do hope that maybe one day, whenever I am finished, that I do get some sort of recognition of like maybe a corner or something named after me. They do talk about after the start finish line, that little chicane that leads out onto the sort of the grid or where the pitboard signal area is, that I'm the only man I've ever sort of seen do much passing down in there. So maybe that'll be named after me. I don't know. It'll all depend on whenever I finish. Obviously, first, I don't want something named until I'm finished with it.
Seeley's chicane definitely has a ring to it, I think.
Well, it hasn't got a name at the minute, so they might as well throw a name at it.
Get you a good word in with the organisers and maybe try and get it sponsored, huh?
Well, I don't know to speak to Mervyn because we don't know if Mervyn's going to be there. He says he's sort of retired or semi-retired at the minute, so there's no point speaking to him.
But just, you know, on the record, and you mentioned there the likes of Joey and Robert as well, two iconic sports stars of the motorcycling world. And I suppose for you growing up, them guys must have been people that you would have looked up to and maybe learned off in a way.
Definitely watched them around the tracks, you know, at Cookstown's Tandragees when I used to go with my dad and sit in the hedges where pack lunch and watch those races. Robert and Joey was definitely somebody that we watched and looked up to. I remember going many's the time to the Northwest and watching out for the yellow helmet, and then obviously Robert being dominating on the JPS Norton and the sound of the Norton as well, and spitting flames out the exhaust was just something you'll never forget. But you know, unfortunately Joey passed away whenever I just started my tarmac career. I think it was Joey passed away in either June or July of 2000, and then that's whenever I actually took up short circuit racing, was July 2000. So it's not really how you want to remember starting through Joey being killed, but it was around that time. I never got to share the racetrack with him, but obviously seen him and watched him and seen a lot of his TT onboard videos that way back at the beginning. I think they called one of the videos V4 or something like that. I remember watching it early days of onboard footage, and the noise of the Honda that he was riding was just, I can still hear it now thinking about that video. So yeah, I never got to race with them, but watched them many a time, and obviously seen a lot more of the racers that we have at home over the years, going to Nuts Corner and Kirkiston. I even remember my dad taking me down the motorbike to Kirkiston one year. I think it was the year that Ron Haslam came over on the Pepsi 500 Grand Prix bike, and he kind of smoked everybody. And then my dad must have thought he was Ron Haslam on the way home, because he got caught speeding with me in the back. But we'll not go any further into that.
Very good. And a couple of weeks ago, we had actually had Gary Dunlop on the show. And he was actually saying, in the early part of his clubman's career, which I think started out around about the same time as you. I think he was maybe 2002 or around that from memory. And he talked about, the good crop of riders that were coming through the short circuit scene at that time, like Eugene Laverty and people like that. It must have been a very interesting time to start out your career, Alastair.
Yeah, I can remember at the beginning there was that Red Bull Academy or Red Bull Rookies thing was being talked about. And I think one of the journalists at the time, I can't remember if it was like Leslie Moore or somebody along those lines, had kind of said that my name would possibly be put forward for that Red Bull Rookies. And that would have been a good opportunity if I had been in the final selected ones to go. But obviously I think Johnny Ray was in one of them, or in the selection, and Eugene Laverty was in the selection, and look where they are now and progressed to. So maybe I just missed that Red Bull selection thing at that time, because at the beginning I was riding a 125 for the first 2 years when I started, and I think it was around that time that 125 Red Bull thing, where you would have went away to England and raced or rode in front of Jeremy McWilliams and a couple of other guys, and then tried to stand out or put in good times or good effort, and it was the whole package. You got to do the whole media training as well with that, and learned how to speak in front of the camera. So just missed out on that, but then just forged my own path with staying at home for 7 years and doing 125, and then moved to Supersport, and then doing Superbike, and then doing both Supersport and Superbike together in a few years. So you kind of 7 years at home, and then obviously was lucky enough, a new up and coming team from England. It was actually Eddie Mateer from Lisburn who ran a magazine there for a number of years. I think it was called Emerald Racing, I think it was called, and he was friendly with the boss man who was putting this team together in 2007 to go British Superstock 1000 racing. And Eddie Mateer had said to them, you might want to try Alastair Seeley on board for giving him a chance at the British Championship, because he's kind of winning everything at home here at the Irish level, Supersport and Superbike. So thank you, Eddie, because he played a big part in getting me on board to learn the British tracks with that. Was it Van Fit Yamaha team? Yeah, it was Van Fit Yamaha, and that was my first year of BSB Championship. And then after that, everything kind of moved along and moved up the ladder. The rest is history, as they say.
That's it. And just sort of to close out, is that something that you look back on and say, what if, if you had have got that dream ride, you may have maybe went on to a bigger and better things. You've achieved great things in your career, but you may have got a crack at the world stage. Is that something that maybe just doesn't sit well with you, or?
No, I just kind of remembered about it, as we were talking, and at the beginning that it was mentioned. For whatever reason, we didn't get put into the final. It must have been dwindled down to maybe a few, and obviously that few went on and done very well. So obviously speaks volumes for the Red Bull Academy, you know, to take in the riders and develop them, and then kind of spit them out at a British level for them to do well, and then move on to the World Championship level. But no, I have no regrets. I'm kind of very happy with what I have. You know, it's 2 British titles and a record Northwest wins. Proves that we've had a good career, and it's not over yet. You know, I'd like to see where we end up on Irish short circuit wins. You know, I don't know what I have at the minute, but I'd like to just try and keep adding to them. And obviously, I feel I've got a good package below me with the IFS Global Logistics, Yamaha R1 and the R6. Or there's definitely no shortage of, what shall we say, money being put at them. You know, Graham Hanna's the boss man there, and he puts together a good show, puts together good bikes. And you know, I've rode actually the bikes a couple of times before. I think in the Sunflower I've rode them maybe 2 or 3 times now, and you know, that's kind of definitely why I wanted to go back. And when it became available, then I snapped it up and took the chance to ride for the guys again. And obviously Jeffrey Barn and Simon are heavily involved in the team and have a good crack, and we get on very well. And that's who was with me yesterday at Bishopscourt at the track day, was Jeffrey and Simon, and then Graham even came down and made an appearance. So, you know, we all gelled, and there's no real pressure. Just go out and do what I can do, and they kind of know the amount of racing that I've done over the years, that they leave it up to me to get on with it. And I just give a little bit of feedback and make small changes. But to be honest, the bikes aren't far away with me, having rode them for a few times, and we just put fuel in it, put the tire warmers on it, and away we go.
And would you ever see your tally at the Northwest? Do you see it being equalled or beaten? Or do you see anybody, you know, capable of pushing it to the wire?
Yeah, probably at some stage. You know, everybody sees records, and records are there to be broken. As I say, you know, when I watch my DVD back, I get frustrated where it could have been up higher than 24, but it's all ifs and buts. And you know, that could be the same for somebody that's coming along and starting to rattle out hat tricks of victories. And you know, you get 5 chances, maybe 6. I'm not sure if you can get 5 or 6 chances in a race week, but you know, if you got a few 5-timers, you wouldn't be long getting close to 24. So, you know, the man who ever does pass mine, if I'm still kicking about, knocking about, I'll shake his hand and say congratulations, very well done, because I know the effort and determination and hunger and want and need that it took me to get them. And obviously you can't say it was all down to me, because I had a lot of good teams behind me, good mechanics, good infrastructure, and good people around me. Even my wee entourage that follows me around on race week, you know, the missus and friends, where, you know, I had a laugh one time, people say about eating birdseed on the grid, and Seeley's eating his birdseed again. But, you know, you need to make sure you're fueled and hydrated for the duration of that day, from getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to finishing at 5 o'clock in that day on a Saturday. Is you know, there's a lot of calories burnt, a lot of sweat lost, and a lot of concentration as well.
I suppose your record would suggest that Seeley's birdseed actually does work.
Yeah, well, when they watch the DVD and get them tips, I suppose if they watch what we were eating and drinking, that would be more help for them to kind of understand. But it's more than just that as well. You know, I feel that the effort that's put in off the track before you even arrive there, with physical condition, is a big thing. And then obviously, the more physically fit you are, the less prone you are to becoming fatigued and tired towards the end of the day. You know, whenever the big final superbike race is on, you want to be as fresh as you can. When you're doing 4 races that day, come the end of the day, you want to be still as fresh as you can. So the weather can play havoc as well. You know, if it's a damp, drizzly, wet, miserable day, you're obviously thinking a lot more about track conditions and where the puddles might be, and a lot of concentration goes into the track, probably more so in the wet or a wet track that might be drying, and you've made a tire selection that's maybe dry tires on a damp track, and you don't want to be hitting a puddle or doing anything silly with dry slicks on a damp track. So, it's at 200 mile an hour, the brain has a lot to think about.
So it was really nice to catch up with Alastair there as he continues his preparation for the year ahead with the IFS Yamaha squad. They'll be in action at the start of July at Kyrgyzstan after the opening round of the season was cancelled there quite recently. So as always, we're going to recap on last weekend's motorsport action, and I suppose there's no better man than Jason to tell us what was happening in the world of four wheels. Jason, take it away.
You're 4 weeks ahead or in the brain there, aren't you? Well, we're recording this on Monday evening. We've just literally finished the first round of the British Rally Championship, and it was a real humdinger, to be honest. Swings and roundabouts, and for a long portion of that event, it looked as if Frank Bird, he's only 21. He was running away with that event, but he had a spin that opened the door to Rhys Yates, and he looked on course to get his first BRC win of his career. But lo and behold, Irishman Sam Moffat, right at the death, basically took the win from right under his nose, and 1 second all it separated Sam Moffat and Rhys Yates, with Welshman Ocean Price third. So it was really hot and heavy all day at the Neil Howard stages at Oulton Park, and in the Junior British Rally Championship, Moira's William Crichton, he was head and shoulders above the rest of the field. He was a comfortable winner. Certainly his experience in the Junior World Rally Championship feels coming into its own there, Aaron. And
was that all we had happening across the weekend?
There's a heck of a lot coming up this weekend. Just want to briefly go through this because there's literally so much of it. First up is round 3 of the European Le Mans series. So that's the 4 hours of Le Castellet at Circuit Paul Ricard. So we've got Temple Patrick's Wayne Boyd and Belfast's Charlie Eastwood back in action there. So I'm sure they'll both be looking for good results. Wayne and his United Autosport teammates, especially given their really frustrating start at round 1 and 2. Then we go to the World Rally Championship. It moves to Rally Italia Sardinia, where we have the usual suspects, Sebastian Ogier, Elfyn Evans, Ott Tamak and Thierry Neuville, all doing battle on the Mediterranean islands. There's a new base this year for the event, so it's going to spice things up. We also have, in just other news, Fintan Aaron Johnson. He was due to be in action this weekend with Oliver Solberg in Sardinia. Unfortunately, Oliver's father tested positive for COVID-19 last week, so Oliver's having to spend 14 days in a hotel quarantine, and so I can't think of anything worse. So this will be week 2 of that quarantine, so effectively they're not going because of that, which is disappointing, but rules are rules, and that's just the way of the world. And then very briefly, rallying is, lo and behold, due to return to Northern Ireland on June the 17th for the first round of the Northern Ireland Rally Championship. There won't be spectators at it, June the 19th. There won't be spectators at it, but it's looking all systems go for that, so that's really good news. Looking forward to covering that event. And then very quickly, Hillsborough's Daniel Harper, he is taking part on Saturday and Sunday in the 24 hours of Nürburgring over in Germany. And Claret's Josh McErlean has just announced that he is returning to Rally d'Alba in Italy for a second successive time on June 12th and 13th. So we have a really busy weekend coming up across lots of different codes there. Sorry if I've been rambling and not making much sense there. It has been a busy day with BRC, and I'm just trying to catch up on this as I go along, but hopefully that gives listeners some idea of who's doing what and where they're doing it.
You just touched on it there about the Northern Ireland Rally Championship getting back underway. Where is that hanging out?
Good question. That is at Bishop's Court on June the 19th. Now, as I said, spectators can't go, but there is the expectation that on August the 7th, fans can go along to Shackleton for the dog leap stages. So let's get this first round out of the way, and then hopefully we can all, those who want to go, of course, can go on August the 7th over to Ballykelly to see Derek McGarty and those guys fighting out for the win. It should really be good to see some action again. It's been a long time since I've seen a rally car been driven in anger, so I'll certainly be there myself, Thor.
I don't doubt that for a minute.
And if you had any sense, you'd go as well.
Well, good job. I don't have any sense there. Just getting back to the world of two wheels, it was quite a somber weekend, I suppose, after the tragic death of young Swiss rider Jason de Pasquier, the 19-year-old who was killed at Mugello at the weekend.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
In practice. So that sort of got the weekend off to a sad start. But racing continued, much to the dismay of some riders. A lot of them were, venting their frustration, feeling that things should have been cancelled due to the tragic loss of the youngster. So that was really the low point of the weekend at Mugello. But Fabio Quartararo went on to win the main race in the MotoGP after Bagnaia crashed out in the Ducati in the early stages. And it means that Quartararo, I think that's his third win in the bounce. So he's going well and extended his lead at the top of the championship. It was an impressive result for KTM as well. Miguel Oliveira, he came home in second. So, they're starting to pick up some results and taking the championship on. And then the forgotten man, Johan Mir, the reigning world champion, he got onto the podium as well. He finished third. So he's starting to pick things up again. Valentino Rossi, I know you're always interested to hear about him, Jason.
Absolutely.
He came home in 10th. Points on the board, but probably not where he would have wanted to be at his home Grand Prix. But as I say, it was quite somber celebrations the whole weekend, because at the end of the day, when a young 19-year-old his life is cut short, it sort of puts things into perspective for everybody.
But we see that a lot of the time when there's few. Well, I know a couple of examples in rallying where people have tragically been killed. It doesn't happen that often, thankfully, and the event has been cancelled. And we know of cases where riders on the roads have died, but the event has still gone ahead. It's a hard one to call, isn't it? It just seems in the examples I'm speaking about, I'm not giving specifics, but I have them in my mind where people have sadly succumbed to their injuries and a decision's taken, right, the rallying's not going ahead. But on road racing and MotoGP, it seems that they've obviously weighed it up and they've felt it's the right thing. What do you think? Should they call the meeting off or go ahead and hold it in their memory, or what's the best thing?
Obviously, for me, I was actually at the Isle of Man TT the year Karl Horace was killed, and a lot of fans who are listening to this will know the background of Karl Bomber Horace, as he was better known. And he was killed, I think it was in the Mountain Mile, or it was on the mountain section of the TT track anyway. But I found it a bit surreal where you were walking through the paddock right next to where he had set up his caravan. And I'll never forget walking past the caravan and his relatives just sitting there mourning, and crying, and just, it was totally mad for me to see that. And yet racing continued. So I suppose it's one of them things where it's up to organisers at the end of the day. Do you take a collective vote from riders? I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I suppose when in this situation you're talking here of a 19-year-old kid, a teenager at the end of the day. I know Malachi Mitchell Thomas was killed at the Northwest a few years ago. and I think that was during the Super Twin race, and Mervyn White took the decision to cancel the event that year. And I don't think anybody really got on his back, because at the end of the day, you have to take into consideration here what has actually happened. I don't know if TV rights come into it in MotoGP, you know, Dorna or the guys who look after it. I don't personally know, you know, but in my opinion, it's, you know, as a mark of respect, I always think that them things should, you know, they come second in that event or that situation. Racing secondary, you know, but
yeah.
The other
thing that I know it annoys certainly people in the motorsport fraternity. It may well be the same for yourselves and the motorbike world, but when your Moto3 rider passed away on Sunday, it was all over the news. But if he had won Moto3 last season or this season, he wouldn't have got a sniff of any headlines. And that is a sad reality. And I think if there's anyone listening to this who's in the profession of media and news especially, sometimes I feel like saying, take a long, hard look at yourselves, because we know there's certain things in life sell papers and make people want to click. But if you've covered that chap's career from start to finish on your website, and you've given him column inches and given him airtime, and you cover his death, okay, you've given him fair coverage. But just to jump on because he sadly passed away, I just don't think that's fair. People have the right to know, of course, that this is happening, but it doesn't do the media any favors, does it? It doesn't make people warm to the media whenever they do things like that, because it just creates a feeling of hostility and standoffishness, which they really don't need. Yeah,
that's exactly it. Yep. And just to move on from that sad subject, there was also Moto2 and Moto3 action. Remy Gardner won the Moto2 race, and there's a whole exceeding track limits debate. Now, I don't know if you've seen anything.
I've seen that. I saw Peter Hickman was on social media today talking about track limits.
Yeah,
he was saying put down artificial grass or something.
Basically, if you have a toenail touching the side of the track or the AstroTurf, you know, you're getting penalised for it now and things. So it's definitely you have to be precise, inch perfect, but, no matter what.
But then the counter argument is these are professional athletes. They're doing this week in, week out. They know what the track limits are. So why do they continuously breach track limits? I mean, it's an indefensible action. That's like a defender turning around and kicking the ball into their own net. It's something you don't do because you know the consequences. So when you breach track limits, you know what the consequence is going to be. You're going to be, if you're doing a flying lap, it's docked, it's scrubbed. It's happened in the European Le Mans series. The last time them guys were out, this guy thought he was on for pole, and the guys just went, nope, track limit exceeded. Don't do it. Why do they do it? Well, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
If everyone knows what the rules are before they head out, it makes it fair, but maybe I'm old-fashioned.
We'll leave that up for debate, sure. And World Superbikes, it was another fantastic weekend for Jonathan Rea. He finished. I watched some of the races. I didn't see them all, admittedly.
Thought you were a fan.
I'm a fan, but I was otherwise.
You're an armchair fan, are you? You're a casual fan.
I was otherwise committed yesterday afternoon, but I seen that he picked up his 2 wins. I know that race 2, but it's actually race 3 of the weekend, counts the World Championship points. So he won the Superpole sprint race and then the race 2 as well. So he's got a healthy enough lead in the championship after 2 rounds, 35 points. I know it can slip away quite easily, but I'm sure he'll be happy enough with his earnings after the first 2 rounds of the championship. Scott
so
Redding,
just before you go on, this Superpole, it doesn't actually count for anything.
No, it's just a sprint race. It's just the sprint.
So what do you get at the end of it?
Nice
apart from a handshake?
Nice big sparkly Tissot watch. I'm sure Johnny Rea could open his own jeweler.
He could open his own watch shop in Ballyclare or wherever he's hanging out.
Yeah, but I think the indicator for me was we seen Scott Redding, who well, he was able to escape again this weekend and flashes on the correct tyre. So he had a mixed bag over the weekend. He didn't do probably as well he had hoped, and his teammate Michael Ruben Rinaldi was wiped out by Garrett Gerloff, the same rider who actually took Jonathan Rea through the grass last week. So he'll be in the bad books for wiping boys out. He'll be in the black book. But I know it was Eugene Laverty. He had a positive result in 9th, so that gives him something to build on for the weeks ahead.
Definitely. Anything else that we need to know of, even locally?
Nothing jumps out at me, Jason. The next big thing probably will be the next BSB test, which is due to happen at Donington on the 8th of June. I see Honda must be somewhere testing at the minute, and it was Glenn Irwin has a few things up on social media there, so that'll be worth keeping an eye on. But we'll see what happens in the weeks ahead. Obviously, I noticed they're laying some new tarmac out around Armoy there, so they must be getting ready for racing in a few weeks' time, which we're all looking forward to. But I'm just going to wrap this up, and I'll say to your listeners that that's another episode of Pitlane Podcast safely over the line. We really hope that you enjoyed the show after you get a chance to listen to it back. And if you liked it, then I'd ask you to get in touch with us in the comment section, or suggest maybe, how you would do things differently, or what you would like to hear in the show via our various social media accounts. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating on our podcast, because it really makes a difference. But until next week, thanks for listening.